from and to learn this. So I've put together some thoughts about why I do what I do. And I want to preliminary that with the notion that there's a lot to say and not a lot to say. The way I've prepared my comments, they're relatively intense, but hopefully with a nice break to keep you from going nuts listening to me. But I want to convey some specific points, the primary point being that muscle response testing is one of the most valuable tools I've ever seen for analysis and diagnosis, and just frankly smoothing out life and living it in the best way possible. So let me just get busy here and put together my share with you. Just give me a second to integrate it all. There we are. You know, I'm not sure how to do this stuff, but I'm going to do it. How about that? Is that visible to you, Dr. Clearfield?
Yep, that works. You got it.
Oh, the first miracle has happened, and I did it without muscle testing. So the entire purpose of my presentation was to, in response to a visit with Dr. Clearfield, who's my favorite osteopath, he often prescribes things, and I will always respond with, well, let me check it out, and I'll pick the best one. He never argues with that, and he helps me a lot with the scripts that I need. But when it comes down to vitamins and other things to fill the blanks, he's very understanding that I have some methodology. I think I could find a really good product to fill that gap that's been looked at. That's why I'm into the qualifying and quantifying of nutritional supplements and frankly, everything. Honestly, you can quantify and qualify utilizing muscle response testing, even the information that you read and study, the food that you eat, and the circumstances you're in. So let's talk about that. Hold on. From the beginning. Here we are. Okay. Talk about reverse diagnosis, which is the back door to truth. Now, I will do my best not to dwell on slides and read them to you, but to get it all, let me share this. Reverse diagnosis has to do with figuring it out after the fact. And reverse diagnosis doesn't necessarily serve us because it may be too little too late. Let me fix that shade. And we may miss something. If we'd simply known the right interrogative, we could ask the right question and ended up with the right answer. So here's a typical patient. You tell him to go get a vitamin. He goes to the store and he looks at this and he says, how on earth do I take what I need to take? Which one is best? People shop by price, by label, and every other thing. And you know how it usually comes out. If they end up with something, we hope it's the right one. And note that when we are professionals and we carry these things in our offices, we're kind of in the same boat as any medical practitioner, where the drug detailer or the vitamin salesman or the brochure introduces us to a set of vitamins, and we understand that this vitamin might help this condition or this supplement. And we tend to just buy from the label, from the company, from the detailer without really much information on how it is and why it works. When you get a blood test, how do you know it is actually about you? But secondarily, how do you know about how accurate it is? How do you know if it really references your circumstances? One of the questions I've always asked is, after the blood's out of my body, is it me? We'll have to talk about that sometime. If I have a choice of antibiotics, if I'm prescribing or receiving or taking, I have a list of choices based upon my experience, my drug detailers, what I anticipate to be the outcome. I'll pick one. But is there some way or methodology to determine one above another? I submit there is. How about diets? There are thousands of diets, some for losing weight, gaining weight, lowering cholesterol, thousands. I know I've tried my share, but there can be ways, aside from a guess, to pick the diet that serves one the best. So our responsibility as a doctor to a patient is to quantify and qualify everything relevant to the patient's circumstances and their needs within what we know. To do that, we access the best data we can come up with, and we know what to do and what not to do. When we start looking at the whole person, the view can change. Muscle response testing will allow us to actually discover and train our own intuition. That's because I'm going to introduce you to the concept of how holism doesn't just incorporate you as a person or that patient as a person, but the equation of you and that patient, and that incorporating anything and everything in the data bank around us. Because our bottom line is that we really just want to help our patients. And if we're going to do that, we want to try to know and be as comprehensive as we can about their particular needs. Muscle response testing is a tool to achieve that. I'm curious if you might note in the text message down there, if you've had any experience with muscle testing, let's hear about it. Let's talk about it. We have the data, we have the patient, we have the doctor, and we circle it. That's that red line is circling those three things, trying to put together an understanding of the very best good that we can offer for anybody who shows up as a patient. And we can submit that this is relative to relationships, just anything. It's a model and a paradigm that satisfies all the particular interests we have. But in this case, healthcare, let's look at that specifically. Our original goal is to qualify and quantify everything and what to do about what and how much of it to do. Why are there so many specialties in healthcare? It's complex. Here on the left, we're looking at the Krebs cycle. Here on the right, we're looking at the methylation cycle. What do we do in the biology lab? We try to dissect this, interpret its meaning, find some sort of way to plug the holes. Over here, maybe we discover we need some vitamin B12. We need a specific folate to handle a SNP that's in somebody's genetic profile. And it's not a bad idea, except that if you have a million things happening in the body, it may demand that you disregard 999,000 of them to deal with what you think is going on. I just submit that we may be able to expand our abilities by utilizing tools to help us expand to experience and explore the whole system, so that when I go to the store and I look at this rack of vitamins, my question might be reduced to, well, I need a B complex, and there are 10 choices on the shelf, and I can show you that in those 10 choices, you can literally qualify and quantify which one is going to serve your best good. If I'm doing bone scans, look at what it takes to analyze a situation in a person's health with their bones. You got CT scans, bone scans, mineral studies, muscle enzymes. We could go on and on. We have diagnostic tests for neurology. Hundreds of things that can be done to help patients. What if I need to know all about these antibodies and interpret what's in that with just my limited knowledge in my brain, in my book, in what I was taught at school? It can be very restraining. So just read this with me. Physical assessment and examination, radiography, MRI, bone scans, blood organ performance, conductivity, mineralogy, contamination, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's so much to know, so much to explore, so many issues that can affect a person's present time condition. And we're stuck, we're limited. The prime reason we're limited is that all medicine's been designed to satisfy the ICD-10, third-party pay. Any of us in healthcare know this book has gotten thicker and thicker. The diagnostic codes have gotten more and more numerous, down to the point where if you smash your fingernail, you have to be able to define what smashed, which fingernail it was, which knuckle is involved, et cetera, in order to receive third-party pay. Now, those of us who are in the cash business, we may disregard this, but it's a real thing to the clients. But fundamentally, the standard, what we refer to in our country really is the disease care protocol and disease care business. At best it can be, is not about the whole human. It's specialized. It's specialized because it's complex. And it's complex for many reasons they may not know. I think a lot of the complexity is just driven from the nutrition and lifestyles that we have. Well, I'm sure any of us in holistic care would agree that that's probably number one. But I go to the doctor. The doctor says, how are you doing with your diet? How's your lifestyle? What's the family doing? How are they doing? How's that affecting you? What about your particular exercise protocols? What about the work you do? Are these relevant to me as a patient, a client, someone seeking some sort of relief or guidance? If you've been to any of the common providers today, specialists, and even a lot of the generalists, you know that when you go in the office, all of the rest of this becomes immaterial. What they want to know about is this lesion. Well, where did you get that lesion? What's it about? Let me freeze it. Let me send you on your way. And that's all I have time for. That's all I have facility for. That's all that really is pertinent now. I'm not saying it's impertinent or unrealistic or unnecessary, but I suggest that there are tools that enable us to expand beyond the thinking and dynamic of the minute pieces and parts healthcare that we're all experiencing. Even as a generalist or a specialist, how can I serve better? I just need to know all the options. How can I know all the options? Qualify them with muscle response testing. And the primary issue of muscle testing is if it makes you stronger, it's qualified. If it makes you weaker, it's avoided. If you want to quantify, you can actually determine with muscle response testing quantities and qualities of protocols, nutritional inputs, medications, diets, lifestyles. There's just no end, using your imagination, to what you can learn with muscle response testing. So we can take these little minute pieces, whether it's medicine or therapy or diets, we can take these small, segregated, separate pieces, and with muscle testing, getting a picture and an invitation to understand the whole person, we can get more of an all of me consideration for a person's health needs. That really is why I would encourage muscle response testing. It's very simple to do. And while it may appear esoteric, once one gets into it as a tool, it will hook you. So what muscle testing is about is breaking down the difference between the Newtonian linear realm or the quantum realm. Quantum is just what we're utilizing as a definition to incorporate everything. But the pieces and parts, we will use the notion of Newtonian linear breakdown. We know and we think that we talk about quantum realm incorporating 99.9% of everything. And the Newtonian realm, the linear realm, is just tiny pieces and parts. I recognize these are overlapping things, but for purpose of this discussion, it's very helpful to have an holistic view for everything from splinter removal to complete body reconstruction and lifestyle modification. That happens to be my interest. What I can say most gratefully about muscle testing is that literally it opened the door to ask any question of the body, the circumstance, and to be guided by something way beyond my own personal limitations. Here's what my school experience was like. As a chiropractor, we fundamentally had two choices. In the initiation of chiropractic in this country, Palmer Chiropractic College was the granddaddy. And what they taught was the Atlas adjustment, which they'd refer to as HIO, whole in one. Not an unreasonable tenet, given that the Atlas here is the base of the skull and the root of the spinal cord. And so the proposition was that if you adjust this properly, keep his head sitting on the spine properly, you're going to have clear and complete and intelligent flow of brain to body, which is going to govern everything that works. And it's going to reset anything and everything that's out of sync. It gets out of sync because this joint is out of adjustment. They saved a lot of people's lives with that, helped lots of people. It's still being utilized. Most chiropractors actually pay a lot of attention to it, but they don't stop there. I went to Logan College, fascinatingly, which did their primary adjustment, the Logan Basic, was literally a contact on a prone patient right there on the sacrotuberous ligament. It was called the Logan Basic contact. I wonder if any of you have ever experienced that. It's kind of it's a very friendly technique. Very few of the people I went to school with practiced it. I think I probably did that technique a couple of times. Great for babies. But there's so much more that can be done. My point is, though, that these two initial big colleges really specialized. And all of us who didn't specialize were called mixers. We started doing physical therapies and adjusting the full spine and all sorts of stuff, much to the chagrin of the founders of chiropractic. When I Google Logan method of chiropractic, the only thing I found was some doctor in some foreign country. So that's one of those techniques that's gone by the wayside. But in 1965, in Detroit, Michigan, a muscle was tested and treated and a door opened. It's phenomenal to me what one simple event shared with one simple tool could have done to change the face of healthcare. That's remarkable. So here's Dr. George Goodhart, open-minded, inquiring. He's got a patient, he's trying to resolve the patient's difficulty. He tests the patient and finds that the patient has a weak pectoralis major clavicular muscle. And his investigation to resolve that muscle weakness was the birth of applied kinesiology and muscle response testing. You didn't hear of muscle response testing before this. And this was in the mid-60s. I've looked at this calendar. I think this calendar date here is about 1982. Here's Dr. Goodhart working on a patient. If you can imagine what happened when doctors, healthcare workers found out that they could literally test a muscle to ask the body a question. Think of that for a minute. All that's missing in any of our interrogations is a method to ask a question. Well, because of the way the body is built, its integration, its pieces and parts, and its functions, muscles offer a pathway into the entire system. And the relationship of everything to everything in the body allows us to investigate total body. These are the various pieces of the world that are opened just by muscle testing. Mental, structural, chemical, all the issues of healthcare, all the issues of emotionality and psychology, chiropractic, cranial work, osteopathy, TMJ work, muscle issues, acupuncture, all of that discoverable with muscle testing. So Dr. George Goodhart, the father of applied kinesiology, asking the body an indirect question, opening the door to analysis and treatment, then asking the body a direct question. It simply means if I show up to the doctor, test my deltoid and it's weak, all he knows is it's weak, but then he's going to find out, is it weak because of my spine, my nervous system, my acupuncture meridian connectors, my lymphatic drainage, my blood circulation, my brain-body connection, my gallbladder, anything and everything becomes available through a tool. You have a tool. This tool happens to be muscle testing. Doctor's lost, hold on. This is an example of what muscle testing can reveal. So if I'm testing the pectoralis major, sternal, that's actually talk to me about what's going on in the liver. It may tell me something about a spinal segment, which I'm going to influence relative to the strength of this muscle. It'll reveal what I might do in the acupuncture meridian system to sedate or tonify the meridians. It tells me what I might do within the lymphatic system. I can pursue anything and everything through here to just find out, is that muscle weak by itself? Is that muscle weakness leading me to something else? What does it mean? This is another thing to love. Muscle weakness is or isn't. A muscle responds to command of the body or not. If I have a patient, I say, hold this up strong. If it responds, I know I've got an intact muscle. I know I've got a clear pathway. I know everything's in order, and that's physiology and structure. If it's weak, it says, open the door, start looking. Strong muscle responds when challenged with truth, with strength and clarity. And to non-truth or toxins or harm, it has a weak response. This causes us to encounter and realize that relative to healthcare, acquired skill, knowledge, experience are limited. Everything I learned in the store and in the school was limited. The prime limit was my ability to contain and process and manage the data I collected, the experience I collected, my applications, and all the linear stuff. Phenomenal though, you do muscle response tests that literally opens this door in the body. And then you begin to ask, well, why did that open that door? Applied kinesiology, muscle response testing provides a tool which is proven to assess the whole story of the body. It tells you what you don't know. It's truth testing. The interplay of the body-mind with the fight, flight, reflex mechanisms and muscle response testing is a lie detector. You gotta love that. You gotta love that. You wonder what your limitations are. Here's a whole bunch of docs doing muscle testing. It's nothing hard about it. It is a skill. It's a skill anybody can do. And interestingly, there are lots and lots of lay people doing muscle response testing. They do it to test their foods, to test their own personal circumstances, their health and well-being. Even I personally can utilize muscle testing to assess the quality and intelligence of the books that I read, because everything represents an energetic confluence of information, which is closer to right or wrong. Note this doctor here, he's doing muscle testing and he's surrounded by all these vitamins and remedies and stuff behind him. You'll see this commonly in a muscle tester's office. It's because the muscle test is going to open the door for them to assess all of these nutrients and remedies directly on the body, as opposed to just saying, go to the store and get vitamin A. I think you need vitamin A. I'm going to put this vitamin A on your body. If it tests strong, I'm going to say you need it, and I'm going to send you off with a little bit of it. And it'll be the exact right one. I'd like to demonstrate that to you, and I will, but without boogering up my presentation here. Every muscle is a doorway. Every muscle tells a story. Every muscle has connections. They're all interrelated, contiguous throughout the body. Information is connected. If I have a weak hamstring or I have uncomfortable, discomfortable quads, I'm going to look in my gut. These open up the doors to the abdomen. You'll see people with the flu who commonly have leg weakness. It's their gut that makes their legs weak. If you have chronic weak hamstrings and you say, I've got a chronic low back, is it because of the weak hamstring because of your gut? Or is it because you got a subluxation in your lumbar spine that we need to treat? These are questions that can be answered just by muscle testing. Muscle testing is the library card. Muscle testing is the access to the data bank. Everything in the human body knows everything in the human body. The expression of the human body is from itself in reference to itself. Now, if I go to the doc and I say I have a low hormone reading or I have some kind of an iron deficiency and it shows up in my blood panel, I don't argue with that. What I want is simply the right thing to resolve that imbalance. Now, ordinarily what we do in a healthcare visit is we're offered a remedy. It may be a medication, prescription medication, could be even a vitamin supplement. And then we're told to take that, give it 2, 3, 4 months, we'll recheck everything and see how it went. Well, that's always bugged the heck out of me. I want to know now. So I don't want to experiment with a vitamin or a nutrition or a supplement or a lifestyle change or a diet, for God's sakes. Imagine doing the wrong diet for more than I already do. I really love and appreciate that I can test immediately a nutritional supplement, a medication, a diet protocol on my body, on my patient's body, and know instantly if it's going to work. There's no show up later to see what happens. Sure, we can, along the way, we can modify and test and retest and see what needs to be changed, if anything, but we know it's going to work. We know it's positive. We can even tell how much. The body knows what the practitioner doesn't know. And muscle testing accesses volumes of information around the form and the function of the body, and it can reveal relationships to food, toxins, infestations, thoughts, structural upsets, body incompatibility, supplement needs. This is a very important line. The limit is the imagination of the practitioner. If you can think of a question, the great value of muscle testing is you can ask it. You can actually ask the body a specific question. Again, the function of the nervous system is a balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic, fight, flight, and rest, relax. When you sit down and you're connected up to a lie detector and you're asked, the body responds to lies and truths by kicking between sympathetic and parasympathetic system. A muscle test does the same thing. Why not utilize this extremely valuable tool and this highly sensitive instrument that's full of data to assess anything and everything? These are two extremely important concepts. These may be the core of everything I'm talking to you about today. Intention and the design creation template. Why does any of this work? An intention is the goal or purpose behind a specific action or set of actions, or the purpose behind a specific thing. Doesn't that mean then that a tool has an intention, a plant was intended and has an intention, a blood cell was intended and has an intention, because the purpose behind a blood cell is its purpose. It's its intention. It came from an intention and it moves to an intention. Anything and everything emerges from an intention. Can you imagine that? That makes sense? The doctor has an intention to assist health optimization. The patient has an intention to achieve and maintain optimum health. Those are their ideas, their assertions, their intentions. That's what they have in mind. They're both factors in an equation. Intention is first. Creation is the outcome of every intention. You intended to become a healthcare practitioner, perhaps. That intention was followed by actions, which led you to becoming a healthcare practitioner. Intention preceded all of that, but intention is also the outcome of that creation. If I have an intention to become a doctor, then I do so. Then as a doctor, I have an intention to be that. It's a circle. Now, resistance is the cause of a disturbed expression of an intention. Disturbed intention disturbs flow. Disturbed flow disturbs expression of the dynamic creation template. Now, let me tell you what I mean. If you have an artery that feeds your heart, its intention is to carry blood flow appropriately as needed per the demand of the body. If there's a disturbance of that flow, its intention is disturbed. Then that disturbs the ultimate expression of your heart or the circulatory system. So the artery was designed, created according to a template. If the artery is the artery and acts like the artery, it was designed to do that, it was created to do that, and it fulfills its creative intention by being healthy. If there's resistance in that artery, it is not able to fulfill its design creation intention. Does that make sense? Everything has a design creation intention. What was your intention? You can ask, where are you? What are you doing in your career? And you know that where you are doing what you're doing because of your intentions. Your intention equals your outcome. So that's an equation. I have an intention. I go to school, I do my things, I get my training, and then my outcome is to become that. And so I've satisfied that intention. That's how I know what my intention was. I remember asking my kids, they'll say, I want to get good grades. And they come back with bad grades. And you ask, well, how come you didn't satisfy your intention? Well, I didn't do the things that precede that intention. You can literally ask a client. You know, clients come in, they say, I want to lose weight. I'm ready to go on a weight program. You can actually scale those assertions and ask their body, which incorporates all the information that's within them and their intentions, and frankly tells they're lying. You can qualify and quantify anything utilizing muscle response testing. I'll show you how that works. When you refine the intention, you refine the outcome. Better skills, better tools, better understanding, better effort. If you want to refine your outcome, you have to refine your intentions. Notice here, these are all the components we talked about. This is how we preset an intention to be a healer. Well, I get educated, trained, get my experience, set up shop. I become a doctor, a mechanic, a teacher, whatever. Intention guides this. Why is this important? If you are a healthcare practitioner, it doesn't matter what you are. If you're a mechanic or if you're a window washer, if you're a painter, if you're a teacher, if your intention is refined, squared away, the outcome will be what you say you are. If your intention is off, then the outcome will be less. I submit that the body, every cell, every function in the body has an intention. The intention is known by the body. The body is emergent from the universe. It's all energy. It's all emerged from the universe. It's all one. It's all connected. If I have an open, allowing approach, I can invite the information to feed me the data that I'm curious about. Here's your equation. A recipient with a reflective intention appears. He's the patient. His intention is to get better. They are reflected. So when I come to the doctor, I say I want to get better. He reflects, I see you want to get better. We combine our intentions and then we have a new equation, which is us, the healer and the healee. I want to get better. The doctor's going to help me get better. We form an equation. It's a doctor-patient contract. Could be marriage. It could be a boss hiring an employee. It could be getting the kid to mow your lawn. You create a contract because you agree on a common intention. Now, the variables that I bring to the formula and that the patient brings to the formula affect the interplay, and they will affect the outcome. As I suggested earlier, if a person says, I want to lose a ton of weight, well, let me actually ask if your body and your mind and heart are really into this. You can assert that, and then you can test it using a muscle test. Great tool. But the variables I would mention toward the end, I will be talking quickly about the 3 M's, mind, method, and motivation. In the equation of healer, healee, both come with a mind, both come with a method, both come with a motivation. It's probably impossible to know all of those. But minimally, using muscle testing, we can be guided down the path that is most effectively defined and supported by the equation. So I can lie all day to my doctor about how I want to quit drinking, or how I want to quit smoking, or how I want to lose weight, or how I want to work out, or how I want to get this healthy or that. Those represent my intention, presenting intention. If he's doing muscle testing, he can find out whether I'm telling the truth or the lie. But better than that, he can meet me incorporating the wholeness of my notion, my intention. And if we have a common intention to get well, that's what we're going to get. You healthcare workers have all worked with people who don't want to get well, and they don't. because it's not their intention. What defines the intention? Wholeness. The intention of your eyeball is to be an eyeball. Its intention is to be a complete and whole eyeball that functions the way eyeballs function. It has nerves, veins and arteries, food supply, connective tissue support. Its intention is to be an eye, and it does all it can. It's created to be an eye. And when we use muscle testing, all we're trying to do is get into the system and say, how are you conforming with your design intention? Design is the plan of the thing, the system, the function, the creation is the thing that comes into existence, and the template is the pattern or mold. So an eyeball was designed, then it was created, and it is an eyeball for an eyeball. It's a reflection of itself. Does that make sense? You know, you can put a little note in the chat here and say, you're crazy, but I know I'm not. Let my intention, I'm a doctor. Let my intention be the preservation and restoration of the body to its wholeness. I don't define it. Its wholeness defines itself. Now, while pieces and parts medicine absolutely has its place, we just can't do it all. Within the specialties that we have, we can still preserve the wholeness of that specific issue. And we can do that by muscle testing, which accesses the truth about it. We want to turn to the reflection and projection of the wholeness. That's the design creation template. That's who and what you are. There's a design creation template for drugs, vitamins. Let's say that's vitamin C. It has a design creation template. But I'm not going to accept that it's just vitamin C and it's going to do what vitamin C is supposed to do. I'm going to test it to see how well does it reflect its design creation template. That is, I've got a choice of 10 vitamin C's on the shelf at the vitamin store. I'm going to score them energetically to see which one is most closely to what it says on the label. Crazy idea. How about that stapes in the ear right there? That has a design creation template, just like your toenail, just like your arteries and veins, just like your lungs. If you have an intention, you have results. If my eyeball conforms to its design creation intention, it will see. If it doesn't conform, it's interrupted. My doctor will try to find a way to get it to adhere to its design creation intention to bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. Want to design and discover design creation intention. Anybody remember John Diamond? This is not local Reno John Diamond. This is John Diamond who took this class from Dr. George Goodhart up here. In 1979, he started using muscle testing to demonstrate how energy affects the body. He used pictures, he used swastikas, he tested people for their reactions using muscle test. Because again, muscle test is literally a lie detector. And then interestingly, he was studied by Dr. David Hawkins. David Hawkins took John Diamond's class. He talks about it in his thesis, in his books. And he says the human mind has no way of discerning the truth. And as a result of that, he started using muscle testing to access the data field. That's the big universal library. That's all the information that's out there. Do you all know what dowsing is? Dowsing is like using a pendulum to find a vitamin, or using witching sticks to see if there's water in the ground, or using a rubbing plate, radionics, which comes from well over a century ago. It's common in England. There are lots of people around who are dowsers. You may have encountered one. Muscle testing is the best dowsing tool there is. I think because it's alive. I think it's because we are all essentially, as human beings, emergent from a data field which truly and absolutely connects us universally. Universe being in the full meaning of the word. So when Hawkins picked up this dowsing technique, this muscle response test, good things make weak muscles, make muscles strong, bad things make muscles weak. He derived this scale. Have any of you read any of his books? Dr. David Hawkins, his first book was Power versus Force, one of the most influential books I have ever read. I recommend it to everybody. As a matter of fact, it's more important than muscle testing. It's called Power versus Force by David Hawkins. I strongly recommend it to you because he developed from this scale of consciousness. Look at the level 200. What he did was say, okay, if courage on a logarithmic scale of 0 to 1,000, he's asking the universe, he's using a muscle response test to ask the universe. He says to the universe, if courage is 200 on a logarithmic scale, what is love? And the universe says, love is 500. What is anger? Anger is 150. What is guilt? It's 30. I'd invite you to look up this map of consciousness, it's called, and spend some time with it. It's very expository. If I'm a 200, I think God is permitting. I think life is feasible. I'm fairly courageous. I feel my consciousness is kind of awake. If I feel love, I'm at a level of reason. Life is meaningful. God is wise. You can appreciate down here, if I translate this into disease states, I can discover things about emotions, life views, considerations, what's the world like? Well, you can actually ask, what I have done in my practice was say, why not just apply this scale of assessment to human bodies? Well, why not? What I discovered was that little babies, brand new, when they pop out of the chute, they literally, you ask the question, use a muscle test, say, what is the logarithm of the functionality and health and well-being of this little baby? It's 1,000. So I'm going to assert that when they pop out of the chute, in most cases, they're brand new. They absolutely conform to the design creation template. They're not boogered up or messed up, broken, or disabled or anything. They are perfect. That's perfect. I discovered when patients come in my office and they are ill, they commonly have logarithmic test numbers, 600s, 700s. Sometimes the really sick ones, 500s. Kind of a cool thing to be able to do, and muscle testing makes this accessible. I will go through a complete systemic functional assessment. I'll look at lungs, liver, gallbladder, spleen, pancreas, stomach, small intestine, colon. I'll look at the kidneys, genitourinary system, hormone system. You can do specific questions using muscle response testing and ask, what is the functional level on a scale of 0 to 1,000? And when I assess a patient, I want everybody to be above 800. I can tell when they're going there. I can put things in their bodies that push them there. I can recommend lifestyles that guide them there, and I can tell them if they're getting there. It's better than a blood test for my work. You know, you can apply the same testing to a vitamin. You can say, if 1,000 is a perfect tablet of vitamin C, it satisfies its design creation template. It was made to be a perfect vitamin C, and it is perfect vitamin C. So I can take a bottle of vitamin C, which I don't have. I can take a bottle of vitamin C. I can literally utilize a muscle test to assess how close it conforms to its design creation template. Now, is it reasonable to you that if I have a client whose health, I want to achieve an 800 on this scale, I want my patient to be up in this realm, Would I want my patient to take a vitamin C that tests at 500? No. Would I want them to eat food that tests at 500? Not if I want them to be at 1,000. You can literally begin to assess the foods, the nutritional supplements, the lifestyles, physical exercises, the amount of time they sleep, anything and everything. If it tests energetically up here, I set that as the intention goal, and I invite the patient to go there, and I'll provide them a vitamin that tests at that level, and I'll put it on the body and see if it conforms to their need and prescribe it from there. Quantum world is 99% of everything there is. Intuition is your sense of response to what is being told to you by the universe. You know, we talk about intuition as being a representation of, I thought of my Aunt Mary and she called me and I haven't heard from her in years, and things like that. But one of the best gifts of muscle testing is when you start doing is that it teaches you what your intuition is. It invites your intuition to speak and to be heard. I've loved and appreciated all the intuitive practitioners I've seen in my past. But what I learn is it's like exercising intuition strengthens intuition. Strengthening intuition exercises intuition. It becomes its own design creation template, part of the equation that you are. And you try to bring that to your client, your patient, and lay it into them and give them, through muscle testing, this passage of this intention into them. And you have this spiraling effect of you get better, patient gets better, intuition gets better, and it's a two-sided equation, patient healee. But if I have a way to assess whether or not a vitamin is a high intention, high energy, high flux, and if it's conformant with the patient, I can change the outcome that I'm seeking for that patient. I'm going to move ahead because I don't have a lot of time left, and you must be nuts by now. When you shop for food, I've tested all these yogurts. This is a good one. Now, that doesn't mean yogurt's for everybody, but if these yogurts test at 500 or 400 or 600 out of 1,000, and this one tested 800 out of 1,000, this is the one I'm going to eat. It's the one I want the patient to eat. I'm going to test it for the patient, see if it's conformant. Is this good for you? On a scale of 0 to 1,000, is it a 4 for you or is it a 9? Well, if it's 9, I want you to eat it. If it's a 4, I don't want you to eat it because my goal is to get you the best you can be. You go to these stores and you look at all this pasture-fed and organic and raised in the barnyard, et cetera, and all these foods and eggs and stuff. You know what? You start testing it, you're going to find out it doesn't test well. You see people who eat this kind of stuff and look healthy, it's because of the magical alchemical power that everybody has to convert lead into gold. Higher intentions must get them healthy. But if you're really not healthy and you want to optimize your health, all these fake milks and stuff, they not only are they junk, they don't test well. They don't really do what they say they can do. They just keep people alive. You can apply the same scale, testing, nutritional supplementation, your vitamins, drugs, medications, exercise protocols, but you have to use a muscle response test. Is there a good peanut butter? Yeah, Adams is a good peanut butter. This Kirkland stuff's pretty good. The rest of these don't pass muster. You want a vitamin that works? You got a lot of choices. Muscle response testing will help you find it. Muscle response testing opens the book. If you have a list of tools, this is a list of tools I had in my practice. I could do percussion therapy. I could do perception therapy, neuroenergetic stimulus work. I could do performance integrations, homeopathics, chiropractic. How would I define what to do? I'd ask the patient's body. I don't need to give them the list just because it's my list. I like it because it offers me the opportunity to really do something meaningful and helpful. Look at all the ways you can get into the body. It's not just the spine. The eyes, you've all heard of EMDR. You've all seen ear auriculotherapy. You know, the skin's covered with reflex points so you can access the body. You know, the joints all represent different stories in the body. You can talk to people and change them. How do you know what to say, what to do? Muscle response testing. The body knows. What do? test the muscle. Ask the data bank. I think I'd like to set up real quick a little demo for you. Anybody who's still awake, I'm going to stop this video. No, I'm not. I don't know how to do this, Bill, but I'll see if I can get this to undo, stop my sharing. That work? Look at that. Catherine, hi.
You got it.
Well, anybody who's watching, I'm going to show you this just for the heck of it. So I have a patient here. I hope you can all hear me. Let's see. And I've got a pile of nutritional supplements and things here. See that? Let's just play like this is a regular client. We're going to ask her body to show us the things that are good for her or not. So for instance, I've got a hormone here, progesterone. I've got a thyroid supplement. I've got a couple of drugs here. I've got some turmeric powder. I just want to know if these are good for this person. So I test the muscle like this, hold your arm, and she's just going to hold that against my resistance, and I ask her to lock that arm. And I can actually touch a test point on her nose and lock her arm, please. And that causes it to be weak. This is an energetic response. And I invite all of you, if you will, to just do a Google or internet search on muscle response testing training. It's marvelous the stuff they've got on there. All these little short quips and quotes about how to muscle test. And I'll tell you what, you play with it, you can learn to do this really quickly. So I have established that she has a strong muscle. She's a testable patient. What does strong mean? It means that her body's integrated and is communicating. What does weak mean? It means it breaks up its communication. So the doctor says, well, you need to be taking some progesterone, Jennifer. And so I can actually test Jennifer and put this progesterone on her body like this and hold your arm strong. And if her arm stays strong in the presence of that nutrient, she's going to be fine, and it may make her better. I can even ask it, I can scale it. I can say, well, on a scale of 0 to 1,000, this progesterone cream as a supplement for you is about 1,000. It's actually about 800 for her. That's how I prescribe vitamins. If it tests below 7, we don't usually bother. But her body just told me that progesterone is good for her and it wants it. Pretty slick. This is good old Kirkland fish oil. Now, it doesn't cost as much as the fancy brands, and it may not say the same things on the label, but I've checked this stuff over and over. It's the only one that's any good. I love that a cheap thing's any good. Is it safe? Is it good for you? 1, 2, 3. Now, her body just told me that she should be taking a couple of these a day. Now, I don't have to just guess. Okay, Jennifer, I think you need some fish oil. Just go pick some fish oil off the shelf. Now, I could also go to my shelf in my store and say, well, I have these brands that were detailed to me by this pharmaceutical company or by this vitamin salesman. Just take this one. Not good enough. And I'll tell you, in my history, I've thrown away box loads of vitamins because they didn't pass these new musters that I use. They didn't pass the test. They don't hold on to this level of interest. Here's a supplement of guarana. Now, I've tested this guarana. It's pretty good stuff. Let's see if it's good for Jennifer. Does she need it? No. If I give Jennifer, I can say, well, how much of this can you tolerate? 1, 2. Her body says, number 1, I don't need it, and don't give me more than 1 of these. Is it a bad vitamin? No, but it's inappropriate. It's not necessary. Here's a supplement. This is hydroxychloroquine. Oh, you've heard of hydroxychloroquine. It may not conform to real science, but it conforms to muscle response testing. Is it safe? It's actually safe. Do you need it? No, she doesn't need it. But let's ask her body, if I gave her hydroxychloroquine, how many tablets could she tolerate? I'm going to give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, in one dose, it's not appropriate because her body doesn't need it, but said that she could tolerate 6 of those unscientific vitamins. Pretty exciting. Now, I think Jennifer has, if I could demonstrate, here's a fun thing you can do. You can actually postulate, set up your own laboratory using a test person like this. And as the basis of remote testing, which I invite you all to investigate, the universe is a sea of information. We're all in it. Muscle testing is a dowsing tool to access the entire sea of information. This is the root of a lot of remote testing, because you can literally use another person to represent someone else, because your library is the entire universe. It's not just the individual you're with. You have to refine your intention to focus on where you're going. But if you can expand your allowance, your knowing, your acceptance and appreciation, you can actually use a dowsing tool, a person's muscle test, or a pendulum to access data from another place. Clyde Baxter, who you may have heard of, he's a polygrapher who discovered plants have thoughts and feelings back in the 60s. Did some beautiful research work. I invite you to read his book, The Body Doesn't Lie. He was the guy who found out that plants have thoughts and feelings, and all of his research demonstrates they literally do respond to life around them. He did investigations utilizing the scrapings from people's mouth cells, the white cells out of their mouths. He'd hook them up to a lie detector type apparatus, have that person off going, living their life somewhere else, and those cells separate from that body would literally react. It's great information, but it teaches us that the universe is all connected, energetic, it is communicative. All we have to do is ask it. Ask it. Now, this requires, of course, that we've got to be open, because it's going to answer us. The Newtonian linear educations, whether it's engineering or law or medicine or any of these other things, tend to confine you to that very small box. If you're willing to reach out of that box and accept what you might learn, you can become even a remote healer yourself with muscle testing. It's entirely possible, entirely accessible. If I wanted to know what was going on with one of my kids, I could use somebody like Jennifer here, and I can assess her and say, will you be my kid? Will you be this person? It's important that we understand why that works. And again, that it works because it's a reach into the universal pool of information, which is continuous and contiguous with all of us. And we are simply intentions that emerge out of that universal data bank. And everything about us, our blood cells, our connective tissue matrix, our livers, our brains, all of that are design, creation, intentions. They were designed in perfection, if you will, with an intention to be what they were. Our job as healers is to enable that system to be restored to its design, creation, intention. But this wonderful magical tool of muscle testing allows us to scan and examine any and every facet of life, chemistry, structure, mental, emotional states, psychological states, spiritual states, and opens the door for us to be almost unlimited in what we do. And for the client, the total benefactor of that is this client, this healthcare client. I'm done. I would entertain questions. I said everything. I can't imagine you have any questions.
Clyde, yeah, but there's a few questions, but before we get to those, can you go very slowly? Show us where exactly you're touching, with one of the things.
Yeah.
You said, is it compatible with her, and does she need it? So you did two separate things. Can you just?
Okay, first of all, hold the concept that that strength means okay, weakness means not okay.
Right.
Anything in the vicinity that makes weak is not okay. So all I have to do is establish that this is a strong reactive muscle. If I command you to be strong, walk it up, please. It's strong. And of course, remember, I've done this a million times, but you can do it 5 times and get it.
Right.
There are points that have been selected. And that's another interesting thing about the whole muscle testing phenomenon, because techniques have evolved. amazing techniques in chiropractic and emotional work, the whole EMDR thing cycle that emerged from individuals asking questions using a muscle test. What they ultimately teach us is that the information is in here, the muscle test accesses it, and all I want to know is, can she command that muscle to be strong, lock it? If I allow my mind to expand, I can literally ask, this is kilt. I can put it in her field, see if it makes her weak. We use a point on the chest right here at the top of the sternum, in the notch of the sternum. That point is one we've decided. These are by decision, by agreement. So I made an agreement with this body. Other doctors make agreements and create entire protocols, which I've learned over the years out of those agreements. Standard Process is a company that teaches vast nutritional work. NutriWest, all these major vitamin companies teach this kind of stuff. But what they don't necessarily want is what Dr. Porter did, was start grading the supplements. That's what happens when I go visit Dr. Clearfield. I start grading the stuff she tells me, and if this stuff doesn't pass muster, I go get my own. Got it, Doc?
You do. It's okay.
And so if this point says safe, a point on the eye socket, on the orbit, says I need this. So if I test fish oil, I can hold it on the point, safe. Do I need this? Yes. How many? 1 tablet, 2 tablets. If I
Now,
test,
are you touching your hand to her eye socket or the bottle?
I'm holding a bottle and touching her eye socket just because it's easy.
Okay.
This is a progesterone capsule. Is it safe? Do you need it? 1, 2. Yep. And I'm going to ask, is that a morning or evening supplement? I want to know that. This is glutathione.
Here's a hint. It's an evening.
Well, this is glutathione. Is it safe? Do you need it? She doesn't need it. But you know, I know enough about glutathione that I may want to take it prophylactically just because it has desirable effects. What do I do then? Well, I'm going to use her body to ask, is it any damn good? What is the logarithm value, nutritional power, goodness of this supplement? It's about 1,000, 9, 8, 10, 20, 30. This supplement on my test says it's an 830 out of 1,000. I don't want to take it below 8, but it's good enough. I'm going to take it. So that's when I take, you know, the volunteer supplement you take. This is chicken. Is it safe? Do you need it? She needs some chicken. What's the quality of the chicken in this can? 1,000, 9, 8. That's why I buy Costco's Kirkland chicken. It's good stuff. What about this Vienna sausage? Is it safe? Does she need? She actually needs Vienna sausage, but she hates it. Is it any good? It's 1,000, 9, 8, 7.
Yeah, sausage.
On the edge. This is some berberine. Is it safe? Does she need it? Does she need it? Now, why does she need the berberine? Is it because she's looking for a little blood sugar stabilization? Is it because it strengthens her heart? You can ferret that out, but we have to stop somewhere. I just say, take this. Now, you have to buy a bottle of 150? Not necessarily. Of course, you can take this obsessively. You can test your stuff every day. I personally test our stuff for periods of 2 to 3 weeks at a time because it's maddening. And we take a lot of nutritional supplements. I recommend a lot of stuff. But it's all qualified and quantified using muscle response testing. Any other questions?
So I've seen it done a couple of different ways where they actually take the pills and put it in the patient's hand, and sometimes do it's called an O-ring test. Is that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is that similar?
Those are all legitimate tests. You can perfect any one of those. And again, Dr. Clearfield, one of the most important concepts is that if you accept that this is available information and you exercise your little protocol, it will work for you. You can literally set up the equation. It's just like me saying, okay, I'm going to use this muscle to check Dr. Clearfield's back, and I can scan the back, and I'm checking Dr. Clearfield's back. I allow that, I accept that, And if I don't resist it and push against it, and I ask with a good intention, I'm going to get the data.
Okay, great. So it's a Jared asks, so different B12s for different individuals?
No, you would qualify them the same way. You got a store shelf that has 6 of them, you've got to test them. And it doesn't matter what it says on the label, the body knows, the label doesn't know, the marketer doesn't know, the packager doesn't know. They're just doing chemical stuff.
Okay. How many direct questions do you ask on average?
Well, depending on what you're doing, because the body's covered with reflex points, every patient is reflex tested. You can run the systems, you can run over the lungs, heart, and the body will say weak or strong, and that can be done very quickly if you have practiced expertise in it. And then if you have a focused thing, if they say my digestion's screwed up, we might spend time in the gut level, seeing strong or weak. And then if we see weak, we may say, is it weak and we need to put some probiotic in there? Do we need a digestive enzyme, or do we need to look at your diet? So it's just like your diagnostic tree in your work, Dr. Clearfield. The patient presents with this complaint and you start going through your list. The only difference is that your list, you're running in your head. My list, I'm running with a muscle test. Same list.
Should do them both.
Yes.
Is there a relationship to lie detector tests in any way?
The answer is yes. And you would love Clyde Baxter's book. Here's one of the key points. Clyde Baxter discovered when he hooked up his philodendron to his lie detector that his philodendron reacted to stuff that happened in his lab. Then he started testing with yogurt cultures and eggs and various different kinds of things, and discovered that plants are in communication with the individuals that they know. He created a protocol, which is what the scientific method is. You issue a hypothesis, you lay out a methodology and an objective, and then you run it. No one was able to duplicate his outcomes. Why? Because of the observer effect in quantum physics. The minute you assert something, the minute you observe it, you change it. If I set up an experiment and say, okay, I'm going to put this yogurt over here, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to pinch this chicken and see if that yogurt reacts. If you say it, it's not going to work. This is why the openness is necessary to utilize muscle testing. It requires an allowance and acceptance to just be what it is without judgment, without opinion, and just go with the flow. It's a true test of that. And you'll find, we've had lots of energy practitioners in town here. You know, they all find different things. The doctor is a piece of an equation, creates an equation. The patients that show up at the doctor's office are attracted there by that doctor. They have an equation that works together until they don't. And I used to think, well, I was the only one right and everyone else was wrong. And then I found out they were all right.
Until we found out, yeah, that they were right, we were wrong.
But then we changed. We opened the equation and we allow something different.
Okay. So Laney says, I like that the connection of intention to being in a state of tension. Learning occurs when we encounter disequilibrium.
Yes, yes. That's a great observation. That's true. And it's that tension, intention. Yeah, learning occurs. Good, Laney.
Okay. Can MRT or AK be helpful by diagnostic and treatment uncompensated vestibular neuritis?
You assess every individual with the same kind of protocols. You've got whatever consideration you target. If you target structure, chemistry, neurology, mental emotional states, any of those, the muscle test is simply a tool to ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. The real key is, you have a tool, the real key to outcome is, have you got the intuition to ask the right question. The more intuitive we become, the more we tend to ask the right questions.
Okay. Observation from David. This is not fake. Every clinician should utilize it. Dennis Alvino says, thank you. Great presentation. Can you ask just with your mind without saying the question out loud?
Well, when you get pretty good at this and you start going high speed, it's all in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
I often slow down to verify, demonstrate to my patient. Hey, this looks good, but it happens that I'm dowsing constantly in my practice with my patient. It's a way I've even refined it to using a stick plate, different than muscle test. Stick plates have been around actually for a century. It's a rubbing plate that you use to assert yes and no. It exactly works like a lie detector. When you lie, you get a little moisture and galvanic skin response change. When you tell the truth, it dries up. Lie detector works that way. Stick plate works that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you learn to test yourself as if you were a patient?
Oh, absolutely. That's what you'll find in any of the search engines on your internet. Muscle response testing. There are lots of little videos on how to self-test. People do O-ring testing. They do little finger testing. They do rubbing testing. They do pendulums. They're all based on the same idea.
Courage, humility, and love is guiding the success. Would you agree? And how do you measure foods and supplements at the stores?
What was the first one? Gut, love, and what?
Courage, humility, and love is guiding the success. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Yeah. But also people are guided by darker emotions, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the success is what one would seek as their intention. That sounds like a whole new presentation. Food. People who have learned self-testing, they'll use O-ring testing. There's a test called the sway test where you can stand erect and you can ask a yes or no question. Your body will literally react and rock based upon forward or back. It's almost resemblant to the fight, flight, fear reflex, love and fear reflex. You're drawn toward what's good, you're repelled from what's bad. You can stand in front of the egg counter and pick your eggs if you want.
Mm-hmm.
And you can use O-ring testing, or some people get in the store with a pendulum, they just feel odd and don't like people watch them.
Okay, that's all the questions in the chat. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Well, I have to say, Clyde, this has been most interesting, and something that's a little bit of practice. I think would not it doesn't take 20 years to learn how to do something like this.
No, sir. You can get it in a day. Just allow that it works. Don't resist that it works.
Okay, I won't.
May I ask one quick question? I'm an old guy, so I was around with Goodhart doing his thing with clinical kinesiology. And another gentleman, chiropractor, whose name I forget, sadly, is he did something called clinical kinesiology using test modes with finger acupuncture points, things like that.
Yeah, he used the mudras on all his hands and beer doll.
Yes, thank you.
Beer
And do you
doll.
know if and I know he passed along with his wife, I believe, and I don't know if anyone's carrying on his work. It was amazing.
As a matter of fact, I think Milton Doughty, D-O-W-T-Y, D-C, you can Google him. He does a lot of mudra work, hand modes is what they're called. He does a lot of that. And it's great stuff. It's just a way to guide the mind.
Yes. And how do you spell his last name, Milton?
Doughty, D-O-W-T-Y.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else? Questions, comments? As always, our lectures are recorded, and it'll be on our website, aosrd.org/webinars. We have quite a library now. We started out with nothing, and we have over almost 2 years worth of work, and we put it in every week. All the folks who are new here, Clyde, it looks like you brought some of your cohorts here. Thank you.
God bless my cohorts.
If you're interested, I mean, we're here every Tuesday night at 5 p.m. You'll come back sometime, Clyde, and regale us again with your tales from the muscle testing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if anybody, you have this link. It's the same link every week. If you want to be on our email list, please let me know. Either put your email address in the chat or send me, you can get me at drbill9@gmail.com. You can get me, and we're here every Tuesday night. Next week, we have Chris Kelly, who is a clinical instructor at TMCC. She's the wife of Dr. Dale Kelly, who's a very prominent functional chiropractor, and she's going to talk to us about. She's been teaching about radon and radon poisoning, and that's something that every time we buy or sell a property, we have to get a radon test. But I'm not so sure we know all that much about it, so I thought that might be an interesting topic. So we'll be seeing that next week, we'll be Dr. Cruz and I are putting the final touches on the bylaws for the American Osteopathic Society of Integrative Medicine. We will then announce a meeting. We have to have an election of officials, and then once that's done, we can apply for a subspecialty group through the AOA, which I'm not hopeful. I'm not optimistic it's going to be granted. Question for Dr. Porter: are you still seeing clients?
I'm available.
Okay. Is there some way for folks to get in touch with you?
Yes, they can text me. They actually have my number.
Can we put it up here, or is that
Put it up there, 775-721-6036.
Sure, I got that right. 775-721-6036.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So with that, anybody else have any other comments or questions? Thank you, your prop, by the way, for being with us. Your muscle tester. Thanks a lot for being here. And I guess that's it for tonight. We'll see you all again next week, same time, same station. Like I said, we're going to be talking about radon next week. And anybody else has any topics they want to discuss with us, please let me know. Or if they want, we'll go out and find someone if it's not in your field of expertise. So please let me know. And like I said, same time, same station. Dr. Porter, thank you so much. This was great. I loved it. And I'm going to have to start practicing here because you'll probably be in soon, and I'll try not to embarrass myself the next time here.
Attaboy. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all.